Can't hear you. No, I can't hear you. I think your mic is on mute. Perhaps we should ask you to please reconnect if you don't mind, because we can't hear you at all. Right. What can I say? Monday morning blues, Monday morning technical hitches. We're going to iron that out in a minute or two. In the meantime, let's take a listen to some ad breaks.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda. Tune into Salam Media via audio stream.
People don't realize, I think, just how precarious the situation is. And that is why we took the fairly extreme step of shutting down Daily Maverick yesterday just for one day in order to try and make this point to the public. I find that people are shocked when I tell them, for instance, that in media, 70% of the workforce has been lost over the last decade. Those jobs have just vanished. I mean, it's hard, I think, to think of another industry which has been as decimated over such a short period of time. And the reason for that, we all know, is down to what you're saying about social media, about the tech giants. So in the past, media relied heavily on advertising, and businesses would give us advertising, and that was a very revenue stream. Now what tends to happen is that you have a business, you're going to give your advertising spend to Google or to Facebook, and we understand that because, those are where the eyes are, those are where the clicks are. But the result is that there has been this incredible reduction of revenue towards media in a way that is becoming, frankly, unsustainable.
Rebecca Davis from the Daily Maverick.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity. Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
It is exactly 8:28 a.m. News and Views on Salam Media, and our first guest, let's hope we're going to be lucky this time, and that's you, of course, Busi Thabane from the Benchmarks Foundation. A very good morning to you. Welcome to the program. Nope. Busi, let's try that again. I can't hear you. Okay, let me start with an introduction and let's get you to respond. Let's see if it's going to work better. Alternatively, we're going to do the interview via telephone. I can't believe it's 12 years on regarding the Marikana massacre, and we understand that political parties in South Africa have used the 12th anniversary of the Marikana massacre to reflect on the tragedy which left 34 striking miners dead in the Northwest, not even talking about the plight of their families moving on. But in a statement released on Friday, the EFF has said that the party would continue to fight for the rights of mine workers. So welcome to you, Busi Thabane. Can you hear me? Like I said a little earlier on, definitely Monday morning blues. Please do bear with us. That's the name of the game. What can I say? We're having a few technical issues, but the technical fundies are busy working very, very hard behind the scenes trying to fix that. So while they're doing that, once again, we're going to take a short break so that once we do have... All right, I've just been given the thumbs up. Busi is on the telephone. Busi, good morning. Third time lucky. Can you hear me? Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Julie, and thanks for having us. I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear. Thank you so very much for your time. And we do apologize for the technical hitches this morning. So let me start once again, Busi. 12 years on the Marikana massacre, it was a horrific time in the life of us as South Africans. I can't even begin to think what the families have gone through and are still going through regarding the 34 victims that were massacred 12 years ago in Marikana. We also know that political parties are using this time to reflect on the tragedy which have left 34 striking miners dead. EFF seems to have jumped on the bandwagon, saying that their party will continue to fight for the rights of the mine workers. So I guess the big question to ask, and you guys, the Benchmarks Foundation, are in the know regarding this situation. Have the situation, the working conditions, and the salaries and the support of the victims' families, has anything shifted? Has anything changed there? Or are we still right back where we were 12 years ago?
Julie, yes, you are correct. Well, there have been some very, very small shifts, if we want to call them that. To start with the wages, as we all know that in 2012, the workers demanded 12,500 rand, the living wage of 12,500 rand. As we at now in 2024, the basic entry salary for a worker is 16,000 rand. Now that means there has been this increase of 4,000 rand, and this is 12 years later. And given other factors like high inflation, the cost of living, that amount really has no value in a way. It's almost as if no increase has happened. So that is the first part of it. So in that sense, not much a shift around the wages. Working conditions, we were there 2 weeks ago because we're doing a field survey on the working conditions and living conditions of the communities around the mine, and not much has changed. If not, we feel that it has become worse. We were saying that in our preliminary findings in the report that, firstly, as we are aware that miners, I think in 2012 and 2018, they were given accommodation by the mine. They used to live in the single-sex hostels that we are very aware of, the notorious single-sex hostels.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2018, these hostels were converted into family units. But what has happened now is that these family units have probably been able to accommodate just about 4,000 to 4,000 workers. And then we had about 33,000 workers living in these hostels. Now that means just about 30,000 of them had to now be moved into the communities. They're being paid a living out allowance, but they have to source their own accommodation. And the living allowance is not much. So they are living in these communities. They're living in backyard dwellings. Some are living in shacks in the informal settlement. And that, of course, is putting a great burden on this non-existent infrastructure within these communities that are being neglected by government and neglected by the mine. So the socio-economic conditions in these communities is quite dire because of that.
Lots of promises were made 12 years ago. We also heard from the EFF that they suggesting that the EFF was born from the ashes of Marikana, and they made a vow at the time to never let the sacrifices of those miners be in vain. They went on to say that they stand very firm in their commitment to the memory of the Marikana miners, and they will continue to fight for justice for the families of the fallen, and also for the rights of all mine workers who still suffer under the yokes or the yoke of capitalist exploitation. But you're giving us a totally different story. You guys, as Benchmarks foundations and other such foundations, went on a field trip, and nothing has changed. In fact, from what I'm hearing, things have in fact gotten worse for certain of these miners. Would I be correct in saying that? And as far as the EFF is concerned, are they correct in having released the statement that they have, saying that they vow to fight? Because in the when all of the different parties were electioneering for the elections here in South Africa, I actually didn't hear or see anybody, let alone the EFF, talk about the Marikana massacre and the ongoing struggle of not only Marikana miners, but miners right across the country.
Mm. No, that's very true. What we have noted is that, as you said in your intro, that political parties tend to use this almost as an electioneering, as a publicity stunt. But it's very sad that they only pay attention to what happened in Marikana on the 16th of August each year. After the 16th of August, nobody talks about it. The people are left alone. The people feel neglected. They are not heard. And no one wants to talk about it, whether it is around the workers, whether it is around the families that are still not being compensated. One of our sister organizations, SERI, has been saying over the weekend that because they have been spearheading the issue around compensation, and you've noted some families have still not been compensated yet. And you don't hear political parties raising this. We have raised the issues around the whole socioeconomic living conditions in the communities. Political parties do not take this up, including the government as well. So these people have been left on their own, and we are trying to put their issues out there so that people can be aware and that they can have change, because that is what they're looking for. They really want change in their lives.
Absolutely. I think when one realizes that there's no benefits of our country's rich mineral resources, it seems that these resources are being plundered off our land by foreign corporations, while the workers who dig deep into the earth remain impoverished and forgotten. And the Marikana massacre stands as the catalyst for the formation of, this is what they're telling us, the EFF. But to date, very especially, you know, in the run up to our current elections, I haven't heard not one political party bringing up Marikana. There's also the issue of the culpability of Lonmin and Cyril Ramaphosa. Back in the day when all of this drama was playing out, um, Cyril Ramaphosa was asked just to meet with the people. I don't think that even happened. And all of the promises made to the victims, the victims' families, I wonder if anything did in fact happen. What do you believe as the Benchmarks Foundations and other such groups ought to be doing to put pressure on Lonmin, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the parties involved here regarding workers' rights? And as you've just mentioned, some of the families have yet to be compensated 12 years later.
No, definitely. The government has treated this whole incident just as a financial liability. And we've been saying that it's more than just financial. They have to go back into Marikana. They have to see the dire situation in what people live and how workers work. But they haven't done that. As you've mentioned, that even the president himself has not gone back to Marikana after many, many pleas. What is said about it is that even the Farlam Commission, in its recommendation, had put it very clearly of what needs to be done in Marikana. There were clear recommendations on socioeconomic conditions, but even till to date, none of those recommendations have been fully implemented, and that is a concern. What is secondly most important is that as a mine, they would have what we call a social labor plan, and that is a legally enforceable plan. But we see that government, the Department of Minerals, they are not enforcing this. So that is problematic. What we have done as Benchmarks, or what we're trying to do, is we're trying to advocate for these issues. And the media has been absolutely very helpful in this situation, you guys, by giving us a platform to speak about it and to put it out there. That is one avenue that we've used. We've also used our international partners to advocate as well. We try to also infiltrate these companies at a global level, where we get to be in their AGMs to kind of lobby at that level. We talk to their customers. We've been speaking to BASF, who's the biggest platinum buyer in the world, or the biggest platinum buyer in South African platinum. So we try to advocate to put pressure on all levels for these companies to be able to comply. And like I said, the gains are very small and they're very slow.
Okay, I just want to end off by sharing a comment by Roger Solomons. He's the acting spokesperson of Build One South Africa. He goes on to say that this day, the anniversary of the Marikana massacres, should remind South Africans of the role of the mining community. He goes on to say there would be no South African economy if not for the risks that are taken daily by the miners of South Africa. Because miners risk their lives and not forgetting their health to support their families and to support the economies of South Africa and the colonial powers before that. But I believe that the colonial powers still have their hands very, very deep in the mining fraternity because they are enjoying the fruits of the labor of these hard working people who earn an absolute pittance. These are the people who are the unsung heroes of South Africa. And on this day, we must continue to advocate for better conditions for miners and for better pay. So says Solomons. So moving forward, what is the plan? What are foundations like Benchmarks and other such interested parties going to push for as far as workers' rights are concerned? And the claims by the EFF, have they been vociferous enough to make the plight of the Marikana workers, miners heard, and for their conditions to be bettered?
Firstly, no. Claims made by political parties like the EFF and etc. has not been loud enough, and that is very disappointing. On our side, as Benchmarks, we continue to put pressure. The field study that we have done 2 weeks ago, we're going to be producing a bigger report, focusing on the mine, its workers, its community, and we'll be launching that in October. And that is our way of putting pressure and bringing a spotlight and trying to find spaces where we can engage, especially engage with government and engage with the mining company itself. And also, on the other hand, we're also assisting communities as well to be able to speak out for themselves, to empower them to speak out in creative spaces. So what we're trying to do is to let them know that you're not helpless. Yes, you're in dire situations, but we are here, we're journeying with you, and we'll continue journeying with you when you express and you keep awareness around what's happening around in your areas. And like I said, sometimes they are very small gains, but they happen very slow. So what we're trying to do is really to put pressure. And it's not only us, like other organizations that we've mentioned, FERI, who are now considering a civil suit against government to make sure they speed up these compensations. So everybody is trying to do a little bit that we can.
Busi Thabane from the Benchmarks Foundation, thank you indeed. And let us truly reflect on the plight of the victims, of the families of the Marikana massacres 12 years on. And let it just not fade away in our memories and in the conscience of all of South Africa. Thank you indeed for the work you guys are doing, for the awareness you're creating, and really, hopefully, the plight of the miners and their families will improve. Thank you once again. Go well and God bless.
Thank you so much, Julian. Thanks for giving us the platform.
8:44 News and Views on Salam Media. Dr. Dale McKinley, a political analyst, is standing by to talk to us about the new mayor of Johannesburg, and that, of course, is Dada Morero.